Hey, are you alone or are you with someone? Sometimes the answer to the question, who are you with, makes all the difference in the world. Welcome to Mornings with Bishop Robert. Thanks for joining me in the midst of my mess, and that's going to get cleared up soon. My goal is to introduce people to the Jesus they never knew and help them get to know Him and His Word personally and better. So if what we share together today really touches your heart, I want to invite you to like, subscribe, and then also share this video with a friend. You know, I used to work for a company that was owned by a former Israeli ambassador. I remember one particular day, we had a meeting with the Prime Minister of Israel. I had showed up at the gate to the office facility and I was attempting to get through the security protocols. I was being very unsuccessful. The reason was that my name wasn't on any appointment list, just the ambassador's. Then something happened that taught me one of the most valuable lessons I've ever learned. My boss showed up. When he walked in and saw what was happening, he only had to speak 3 words. He's with me. A special gate was opened. He and I were escorted to the inner part of the facility, the secure area. He didn't even have to show any identification. We didn't have to pass through metal detectors. Our bags weren't x-rayed. We just walked in. Sometimes the answer to the question, who are you with, makes all the difference in the world. Today's verse says, walk with the wise and become wise. Associate with fools and get into trouble. Reputation is not the only thing affected by your association. Being around the right people, those who are wise, that's going to rub off on your approach to solving problems, the way you deal with people, and even your viewpoint on life. So the Labour and the Conservative parties are the 2 major political parties in the United Kingdom. In the UK's House of Lords, I'm told they sit on opposite sides of the central aisle. His Majesty's government is seated on one side and the opposition on the other. The answer to the question, who are you with, is crystal clear by where you're seated. What's interesting is where a member of the other parties choose to sit. They may choose to be seated with government or with the opposition, or be seated in a central area that indicates their lack of affiliation to either group. Now, I'm not making a case for which party or parties in the UK may have the best approach to solving Britain's issues. I'm merely pointing out that your approach of how those issues ought to be solved and addressed will be very different depending on which side of the aisle your rear end rests. The philosophy of your mentors will impact you. Walk with the wise and become wise. Associate with fools and get into trouble. All right, let's stretch the analogy even farther. There are 2 parties in the kingdom of God as well. His Majesty's government and the opposition. In the kingdom of heaven, the King of Kings actually rules as well as reigns. He holds an absolute autocratic monarchy. The king has an enemy who opposes him and is intent on taking power. Here's a spoiler alert. The king wins in the end. When you choose to be affiliated with the king, you're making a choice to operate under his laws, to solve issues the way he wants them to be solved. You agree to use his wisdom and his methods. And you do that even when it may appear that the methods being employed by the opposition are temporarily being more effective. You see, the king employs wisdom that's first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. This is the wisdom from above. The opposition's approach is to lie and deceive, to take what it wants by merciless force if necessary. And who you are with will impact your process and the outcome. Walk with the wise and become wise. When you choose to be part of the kingdom and make the king your Lord, he places his seal upon you. He declares that you're his. As you follow him, the king himself begins to teach you wisdom, because from his mouth come wisdom and understanding. He shapes your character. He shifts your values and changes the way you see the world around you. In other words, as you walk with him, by learning and obeying his word, you become wise. In the Old Testament book of Kings, we read the story of a worldly king who forgot about the King of Kings. And he decided to sit with the opposition, shall we say. He sent for a servant to ask wisdom from a false god. Ahaziah was the king of Samaria, and by opposing the King of Kings, he associated with fools. It was a fool's choice, and it ended up costing him his life. Associate with fools and get in trouble. When you choose to be part of the kingdom and make the king your Lord, he makes you an incredible promise. Well, several actually, but I'll focus on one here. He promises never to leave you or forsake you. Not only are you with him, but he promises he'll be with you too. In the House of Lords sits a group of people who think they've not made up their minds. They have not chosen to sit with either the king's party or the opposition. They're in the middle. Sometimes their choices put them with one group. Sometimes their choices put them with another, or even off on their own. That's the way the House of Lords works. But the Lord's house, there's only two groups. Those who've made the choice to be part of the kingdom and made the king their Lord, and those who have not. There's no middle section. If you don't choose to serve the King of Kings and make him Lord, you're not part of the kingdom. Don't allow anyone to convince you differently. The head of the opposition is the father of lies. He'll try to convince you that you're fine right where you are. Oh yeah, the enemy will tell you how good you are. He'll try to convince you that your goodness will be enough. God's going to think that's just wonderful. He's lying. It won't. The wise know that it's only the king's grace that'll be sufficient. Sometimes the answer to the question, who are you with, makes all the difference in the world. And you've got to make a choice. So who are you with?